It's a fitting irony that in many ways, when a lot of people are complaining about the state of ODIs being too long, too sluggish, a little boring, or to quote Sachin Tendulkar, monotonous, that were served up with two India-Australia ODIs that didn't anywhere go close to completing the whole distance, but which for their own reasons were weirdly entertaining. The first one, of course, to a gritty show from India. The second, for watching a hybrid of a T10 match and a T20 match in just one 50-over encounter that only lasted 11 overs in the second innings and 36 overs if you're looking at both innings. So even if you're looking at that in T20 perspective, that is less than the full quota of overs. So that was just how dominant Australia were in the second ODI at Visakhapatnam or Vizag. But did you know that India actually losing in this margin, and in fact even Australia winning it the way they have, ended up helping both teams actually script some rather interesting history? Well, that history, or rather these statistical anomalies, are what we are here to discuss in this particular video. First off, it's worth looking at India's lowest ever ODI totals at home and where it is that this particular innings stand. You have, of course, a 78 versus Sri Lanka at Kanpur in 1986 that remains the all-time lowest, 100 versus West Indies in Ahmedabad in 1993, 112 versus Sri Lanka at Dharamshala in 2017, and right below that sits this 117 versus Australia at Vizag this calendar year. It's the fourth lowest ODI total that India have managed to put up at home, standing just above the fifth and final, which was the 135 versus West Indies at Guwahati in 1987. Not exactly the best of starts on this list, but I assure you it doesn't really get too much better from here, because if you're looking at India's lowest ODI totals versus Australia, then well, this one props up right there on third. The lowest total that India have ever scored against Australia came in 1981 when they scored 63 against them at Sydney. Sydney was also the venue where they scored their second lowest total, because they got 100 runs against Sydney in the year 2000. But this one right here, both of these two can at least be excused to some degree by saying that these were away matches. India's third lowest now is the 117, which happened, of course, today at Vizag. The fourth lowest, which was the third lowest, was, of course, that very famous 125 at Centurion in 2003. I don't need to remind you about that particular match, so let's not gloss over it. And it slots above the 145 that India scored, at Melbourne in 1992. Again, this Vizag innings going down in the kind of history that you wouldn't want to be writing, truth be told. But interestingly, this particular win was historic not just for India but also for Australia, because it was a really massive win for Australia. It came in what could be considered very, very few balls. So let's actually check in that regard. If you're looking at Australia's quickest ever ODI run chases, this is the third quickest ODI run chase they've ever had, which is behind, of course, a 66 for 1 which they got in 7.5 overs versus, of all countries, the US of A in 2004, and below the 71 for 1 that they got in 9.2 overs against the West Indies in 2013. This 121 for no loss, which they got in 11 overs, is now the third fastest in terms of run chases, in terms of the runs or the balls that they took, because they only took 11-6 or 66 balls to get to this 121, and it was thanks in no small part to Mitchell Marsh and Travis Head absolutely pasting the Indian bowlers all over the ground. And it slots in above the previous third, which was 118 for no loss in 12.2 overs versus England all the way back in 2023. So interesting history being made by both teams. Unfortunately, if you're an Indian fan, it was for the wrong reasons. If you're an Aussie fan, well, then it was for all the right reasons. Thank you guys so very much for joining us on this particular video. If you enjoy our work over here at Sports Today, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and don't forget to download the SportsTech app. Also, if you're already on the channel, go ahead and check out some other videos that we've done today. For now though, from my side, goodbye.